Okay, everybody, so I am going to do an example of a final account question, formerly known as a trading profit and loss and balance sheet question. And with the new junior cert cycle, they are now known as an income statement and statement of financial position. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do, and I'd recommend that you do, is run through your question quickly with a red pen, mark off all the figures that you need, that you know that you're going to need. So I know that this figure is going to be in my balance sheet. My closing stock is going to be a current asset. Depreciation is an expense to a company. Purchases are going to be in my cost of sales section. Sales goes at the real top of the question. Carriage inwards is going in my cost of sales question. Cost of sales section, sorry. Wages are an expense. Light and heat, an expense. Insurance, an expense. Advertising, an expense. Internet and telephone, an expense. A loan is known as a long-term liability. Cash is a current asset, good thing. A bank, in this question, we can assume that a bank, because it's in the credit section or column, it's known as a bank overdraft. So that's a current liability. Opening stock is going to be in our cost of sales section. Debtors are a current asset, creditors current liability. Machinery, we know, are fixed asset, motor vehicles a fixed asset, and premises a fixed asset. Now we can see earlier from this question that our machinery and motor vehicles are going to depreciate. So I'm just going to put a little note here to remind me to depreciate. Our reserves are going to be in the income statement section. Okay, and I'm just going to mark that with a little IS. And our issued share capital is going to be in our balance sheet. Okay, now a little note over here, working capital in our balance sheet is always current assets minus current liabilities. Okay, so let's start. Good habit to get into is always put on your title. So in the new junior cycle, you may be given the title or you may not. So always remember or always know how to put on your title. So I'm just using blank paper here to show you how to do it. Okay, so our title in this question is going to be the income statement of Caroline's Cars Limited as at 31st of the 12th 17. Okay, so now I'm going to start. Our first figure is always going to be sales. So sales, from our question here we can see our so we'll start here, sales 101,600, and I'm going to put them in the far right column. Underneath this, we have a subheading called less cost of sales. And our first one here, what does it cost us to have these sales? So a company, this Caroline's Cars, they obviously had some opening stock at the start of the year, cars sitting in their yard, and they are costing the company money in order to have some sales. So our opening stock that I marked with a little cost of sales here somewhere is 26,000, and I'm going to add these up in the middle column. Our next cost of sales is going to be purchases. So in order for Caroline to keep her car yard topped up, she has to purchase some new cars, and these are costing her 40,000. Okay, and following this we have carriage inwards. Carriage inwards is an expense, I suppose, to a company, and basically it's the cost of Caroline to transport her cars into the company. So if you can picture all of the cars travelling on the truck, how much did it cost her to transport those cars into her garage or her yard? And in this question, we can see that carriaging costs €1,000. Okay, so I'm going to add all of these up. So 26 plus 40 is 66 plus 1,000 is 67,000. Okay, and this is known as cost of goods for sale. Okay, after this we need to take away our closing stock, so less closing stock. And our closing stock in this question we can see is €32,000. Okay. Okay, so we take away our closing stock, and that gives us our cost of sales of €35,000. 67,000 minus 32,000 gives us our cost of sales. Okay. Now, our next most important figure is our gross profit. We want to find out how much we made. So our sales minus our cost of sales is going to leave us with our gross profit. So our gross profit in this question is going to be 101,000. Always have your calculator handy. Minus 35,000 gives us 66,600. That's our gross profit. Okay. Next heading is going to be less expenses. And we can see from our question we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 expenses plus our depreciation. Don't ever forget your depreciation. So we have wages, light and heat. We have insurance. We have advertising. We have internet and telephone. Then we have depreciation at 10% of, we have machinery, and we have motor vehicles. Okay, so let's start. Our wages in this question are coming to 42,000. And I'm going to add these up in the middle column. You'll see why shortly. Light and heat is going to be 1,800. Insurance 4,200. Advertising 2,100. And internet and telephone 1,500. Okay, and then we know that our depreciation of our machinery, so our machinery in this question is 100,000 and depreciates by 10%. We know that 10% of 100,000 is €10,000. Also, our motor vehicles are depreciating by 10%. Our motor vehicles in this question are worth €10,000 and they depreciate by 10%. How do we find 10% of €10,000? We can type in 10,000 to our calculator and multiply by 0.10 equals €1,000. Okay, we can add our depreciation together to get 11,000. Okay, so we add all of our expenses together. So it's going to be 42,000 plus 1,800 plus 4,200 plus 2,000, plus 1,500 plus our depreciation of 11,000 equals 62,600. And we put that out here into the far column. Okay, what we want to get next is our net profit. Okay, Okay, so this is going to be our gross profit minus our expenses, which is going to leave us with €4,000, 66,600 minus 62,600. €4,000 net profit. Okay, after this, we want to add on our reserves. Now, our reserves in this question are 55,000. And just to explain, a reserve is a profit that has been appropriated for particular purposes in a company, okay? And they're sometimes set up to purchase fixed assets, pay some expenses, basically money that is sitting in the company, okay? So in this question, Caroline's cars have reserves to the value of €55,000, okay? So we add those together. We get 59,000, and this is known as our profit and loss balance. Okay, so we move on to our balance sheet, or what was formerly known as our balance sheet and is now known as our statement of financial position. So again, I'm going to put on my title. Okay, so our title is Statement of Financial Position. Of Caroline's Cars Limited as at (31st of the 12th, 17). Okay, so our balance sheet has a number of headings that we need to work under. Our first heading are fixed assets. Always fixed assets. These are good things for a company. They own them, and they are usually large items which cost a lot of money, and the company will also have them in their company for a long time. So Caroline's cars have 3 fixed assets. We know that she has machinery. We know that she has motor vehicles. And we know that she has a premises. Now, when we are calculating our fixed assets, we want to work under 3 separate headings. So what did the fixed asset cost us? What is it depreciation by? And what is its net book value? Okay, so we need to find out, what did the fixed asset cost us originally? What is it depreciating by? And now what's it worth? Okay, so using our question, we can see that machinery cost us €100,000. Motor vehicles cost us 10,000, and our premises cost Caroline 120,000. We know from our earlier calculations that the machinery depreciated by 10%, and we know that 10% of 100,000 is €10,000. 10% of 10,000 is 1,000, and we have no information that our premises depreciated, so that didn't depreciate. Okay, in order to get our net book value, we take cost minus depreciation to give us our current value. So 100,000 minus 10,000 equals 90,000. Motor vehicles, going to be 9,000 current value, and our premises didn't depreciate at all, so this is still worth €120,000. Good news for Caroline. Okay, so we add all of these together. Draw a double line under cost and depreciation because we don't need them, and this line is known as our total fixed assets. So we've 100 plus 220 plus €230,000, Our depreciation comes to 11,000, 10 plus 1, and our net book value comes to 219,000 euro. We'll need this figure again, so that's why I've left it open. So Caroline's cars have fixed assets to the value of 219,000. Our next heading is going to be current assets. So we know from our question and marking them earlier that we have 1, 2, 3 current assets. So our first one is going to be closing stock. Our second one is going to be cash. Cash is a good thing. We can access it quickly and it's an asset, a good current asset. And debtors. Debtors are people who owe your company money. So for example, if somebody bought a car off Caroline's Cars on credit, they would constantly owe Caroline money. They are known as debtors. They are good people. Okay, so closing stock is to the value of 32,000. So Caroline had 32,000 euros worth of stock at the end of the trading year, 31st of the 12th. Cash to the value of 11,000. And she had debtors, people who owe her money, to the value of 2,000. Okay, we add these together and we get a total of 45,000 euro, and these are known as total current assets. Okay, forgot my T. Our next figure there is going to be less current liabilities. So we know that our working capital should always be current assets less current liabilities. And we know from this question that we have bank overdraft, which is a current liability, it has to be paid off. And creditors are people that Caroline owes money to. So for example, if Caroline bought, let's say, 10 cars off a supplier, she now owes the suppliers money, and they would be known as creditors. So our two current liabilities are bank overdraft and our creditors. And I'm going to add them up in the first column. So our bank overdraft in this question is worth 28,000, and our creditors are worth 12,000. I'm going to add those together. So 28 plus 12 gives me 40,000. And we know that our working capital is always our current asset less current liabilities. So that's going to be 5,000 euro, and this gives me my working capital. Apologies, I should have transferred that 5,000 euro out into the far column. Okay, and we now need to find our total net assets. Okay, so our total net assets in this question are 219,000 plus our 5,000 working capital, which gives us 224,000 euro. So Caroline's cars have assets to the value of 224,000 euro. We now need to find out, where does Caroline get all of her money from? Financed by. Okay, and we can see from our question, the very first thing that we marked, that she has an authorized share capital, and the amount of shares that she can sell to the value of 150,000. So she is authorized to the value of 150,000, and she has actually issued 140,000. Okay, so we want to record this in our statement of financial position. So €1 share capital to the value of 150,000 authorized, and to the value of 140,000 issued, sorry. Okay, now we can see from our earlier profit and loss account or our income statement that she has a profit and loss balance of 59,000. So we want to write in her reserves. So what has she made? She has made a positive. She has made a profit of 59,000. Her profit and loss balance to the value of 59,000 euro. And then we also know from our question that she has one long-term liability. So she has gotten a loan from the bank to the value of 25,000 euro. Okay, so her long-term liability is going to be a loan. And we know that this is to the value of 25,000 euro. Okay, so we add these three figures together. That's 140,000 plus 59 plus 25 equals 224. Okay. My apologies. Should have transferred that figure down here. And this is known as capital employed. Okay, and how do we know if our income statement and statement of financial position have worked? Our capital employed and our working and our total net assets are both the same figure. Okay. So this question has been taken from the educate.ie sample C question 17 papers. So the 2019 educate.ie sample C question 18, and it'll be found on page 122. I hope that it will be of some help to you in the upcoming exams, and I hope to post more videos in future. If there are any questions on anything I've done, please feel free to comment. Thank you.